You thought he didn't care. You thought the silence meant distance. But what if his love was never meant to look like yours? The divine masculine doesn't love with grand speeches. He doesn't always chase, confess, or explain. Instead, he loves through protection, through watching from afar, through staying silent when his heart feels too loud. It's not that he doesn't feel, it's that he feels everything and doesn't know how to be strong and vulnerable at the same time. So he pulls back, not to leave you, but to hold on to himself. And this is where most twin flames get confused. Because while the feminine opens wide, the masculine retreats deep. But what if his silence wasn't rejection? What if it was devotion in a language only the soul can translate? This is the moment you stop reading his love through absence and start recognizing it through energy. Because his love may not be loud, but it's real, and it's learning how to speak. Let's be honest, sometimes it feels like he's not even trying. You open, you show up, you give energy, time, signs, softness, and all you get in return is a few mixed signals, a quiet stare, or maybe complete silence. And you wonder, does he even feel this like I do? But here's what most divine feminines don't realize in the beginning. The masculine does feel it, more than you think. So much, in fact, that it overwhelms him. His soul recognizes you, but his mind doesn't know what to do with that recognition. He wasn't trained to love spiritually. He was trained to love safely, to protect, to provide, to calculate, not to dissolve into a connection that strips away all control. So what does he do? He mistranslates his love into silence, into distance, into watching you from the sidelines, hoping you'll still feel him even when he can't bring himself to say it out loud. And you, divine feminine, you feel everything. You notice every pause, every glance, every subtle shift in his energy. You see the truth behind the mask. But that doesn't mean it doesn't hurt. Because while your love expands, his contracts. And it's easy to assume that means he's not ready, or that he doesn't care, or that you're imagining the entire thing. But what if his love isn't missing? It's just unspoken. What if his love shows up in ways you've been taught not to recognize? Like the way he pulls back when he feels too much, not to push you away, but to stop himself from drowning. Like how he stays quiet because the moment he opens his mouth, his heart might spill out in ways he can't control. Like how he watches you in silence, not because he doesn't want you, but because he doesn't yet feel worthy of what you bring out in him. The truth is, the masculine often loves from a place of internal chaos. He's not trying to confuse you. He's confused by what's rising in him. Because this connection doesn't follow any rules. It breaks his structures. It challenges the way he's been told to protect his heart. It demands truth, vulnerability, presence, and that scares him. You might not see the war going on inside, but it's there. Between the version of him that wants to stay safe and the version that wants to step into the fire with you. And sometimes, loving you feels like stepping into a fire he's never been trained to walk through. But here's what's important. Just because his love doesn't look like yours doesn't mean it's not love. He may not use words, but he uses energy. He may not always come close, but he never really lets you go. He may not say, "I love you," but he listens to the parts of himself that never stopped feeling it. So this is where your power lies, not in demanding more from him, but in seeing what's already there. Recognizing his love in its raw, imperfect, learning form. Not romanticizing the wounds, but understanding the process. Because the moment he realizes his way of loving is received, not judged, that's when it starts to evolve. He doesn't need you to teach him how to love like you. He needs to feel safe enough to love like him without shutting down. And your presence, your truth, your self-respect, that's what creates that safety. Before you doubt his love again, pause. Ask yourself, is he really absent? Or is he speaking a language I haven't fully decoded yet? Because sometimes the loudest love is the kind that's still learning how to speak, and he is learning slowly, silently, but deeply. You've felt it before. The moment things get close, he steps back. The second you let him feel your love fully, he disappears. One day he's open, present, maybe even vulnerable. The next, he's gone, silent, distant, cold, and it hurts because it feels personal. It feels like rejection. It feels like love should pull him in, not push him away. But here's the truth. Most divine feminines have to learn the hard way. When the masculine withdraws, it's not always because he's walking away. Sometimes it's because he's trying to protect you. And sometimes he's trying to protect himself from everything this connection is waking up inside of him. You see, the divine masculine was never taught how to feel deeply. He was taught how to survive, how to be logical, how to carry weight and hold it in, how to suppress the very emotions that this connection now now brings to the surface. So when you enter his life, when your presence hits his field, it shakes the foundation of everything he thought he understood about love, about himself, about reality. And while the divine feminine often responds by opening even more, the masculine responds by retreating, because for him, love doesn't feel soft at first. It feels dangerous. It feels like losing control. It feels like stepping into a storm without any protection, except the one thing he's always relied on: his walls. So he goes back into his cave, not to hurt you, but to try to understand what just happened, to try to put back together the pieces of a self he no longer recognizes. And in that withdrawal, he's not just protecting his wounds, he's protecting you from the chaos inside of him. It's twisted, isn't it? You offer love, presence, stability, and he walks away thinking that's the noble thing to do. That distancing himself is somehow helping you. That by not involving you in his mess, he's doing the right thing. But what he doesn't realize yet is that you're not afraid of his mess. You're not scared of his depth. You didn't come into his life to be a surface-level version of love. You came in to mirror truth, even if it's uncomfortable. Still, his nervous system doesn't know that. His trauma doesn't know that. His past doesn't know that. So when he pulls back, it's not because you did something wrong. It's not because he doesn't care. It's not even because he's confused about how he feels. It's because your presence lit up a part of him he didn't even know was still shut down. And now he's trying to catch up to himself, to his feelings, to this love that doesn't follow the rules he was taught. So what do? You hold your energy. You stay grounded. You stop translating his distance into your unworthiness, because it's not about you being too much. It's about him never having been invited to feel this much before. You don't need to chase. You don't need to explain your worth. You don't need to shrink your light to keep him comfortable. Instead, you remember, his withdrawal isn't always rejection. Sometimes it's a sacred pause, a necessary reset, a storm passing through him that only he can navigate. And when you stop fighting that pause, when you stop making it about you, you actually help him find his way back. Because real love isn't about constant closeness. It's about consistent truth, even when it's quiet, even when it hurts, even when the masculine forgets for a moment what this bond really is. You stay true, not for him, but for you, because your energy doesn't disappear when he withdraws. It becomes the compass he'll follow when he's ready to return. And believe this, he feels that compass, even in the silence, even in the distance, even when his body moves away. His soul never does. So let him protect in the only way he knows for now. Let him step back if he needs to. But don't let that make you question what you already know. This isn't the end. It's a pause. And sometimes the deepest breakthroughs are born in the space where nothing is said, but everything is felt. It's easy to believe that love is only real when it's spoken. We've been trained to wait for the words, the I love you, the message, the confirmation, and when it doesn't come, the mind fills in the blanks with doubt. He doesn't care. He's moved on. It was all in my head. But if you look closer, I mean, really pay attention, you'll see it. Not in the way he talks, in the way he moves, the way he lingers just a little longer before leaving, the way he remembers the smallest details you shared, even months ago, the way he checks in during your low moments, even if he's still not ready to say what's really in his heart. This is the truth about the divine masculine in a twin flame connection. His words may stay stuck in his throat, but his actions often say everything he's afraid to speak. He may not say, I miss you, but he'll suddenly show up in your energy field the moment you pull back. He may not explain why he's distant, but he'll watch every story you post, listen to the songs you shared, stay connected in the unseen, because distance doesn't equal disconnection in this bond. You've seen it, that almost text, that quiet way he shows up without saying anything, that moment where he softens, even if for just a second. When he's around you, you feel the weight of what he's not saying, but also the sincerity of what he does. Because here's the thing, the masculine wasn't taught that emotional expression is safe. He wasn't taught to share from his heart. He was taught to protect it. So while you, the divine feminine, have been cracked open by this connection, he's still learning how to not hide inside of it. And that takes time. That takes inner rewiring. That takes trust he's never had to build before. So until his words can catch up with his truth, his soul uses other ways to reach you. Sometimes it's in a song you randomly hear. Sometimes it's in a dream. Sometimes it's the way he positions himself around you, just close enough to feel your energy, just far enough to still feel safe. But it's there, the presence, the intention, the quiet and effort. You might want the message, you might need the clarity, but don't ignore the small ways his energy says, I'm still here. Because in this kind of bond, the language is spiritual first. energetic before verbal, and sometimes the masculine's biggest expression of love isn't in what he says, but in what he can't stop doing. He can't stop checking in. He can't stop thinking about you. He can't stop feeling pulled toward you, no matter how much he tries to convince himself it's over. And that shows in the synchronicities, in the timing, in the way he returns again and again, even if it's just in energy. So don't gaslight your intuition because he's quiet. Don't abandon your knowing because he's not ready to name it. Feel into what his soul is doing, because the soul always speaks, even when the mouth stays silent. And in this sacred connection, the feminine's role is not to decode every move, but to stay anchored in what she already feels. That's where your power is. Not in chasing confirmation, but in trusting what you already know to be real, even if it hasn't been spoken yet. He's still learning how to say it, but he's already showing it. Let his actions speak, not because it's enough forever, but because it's what he's able to give right now. And sometimes that's the first language of awakening. He doesn't need pressure. He needs presence. He doesn't need more questions. He needs to feel that he can meet your truth without being shamed for not having found his own voice yet. Because one day, when his heart is ready, those actions will turn into words, and those words will be honest. Not because he was pushed, but because he finally caught up to what his soul has been saying all along. What makes his heart feel safe enough to open? Let's get one thing clear. He doesn't open because you beg. He doesn't open because you wait. He doesn't even open because the connection is strong. He opens when he feels safe, not safe in the way the world defines it: money, control, logic, but safe in the energy, in the frequency of your presence, in the way your truth doesn't try to convince him, in how your love doesn't perform. It just is. Because to the divine masculine, opening his heart isn't just a moment, it's a risk. It means stepping into a version of himself he's never met before. It means allowing his old armor to fall, not because it's time, but because he chooses to. And he'll only make that choice when something deeper tells him, I won't be punished for being soft here. So, what makes his heart feel that? It's not how much you give, it's how you stay centered while giving. It's the way you speak your truth without needing it to land perfectly. It's your ability to witness his wounds without trying to fix them. He doesn't need a savior. He needs a mirror that doesn't shatter when he shows the parts he's hidden. He doesn't need you to be perfect. He needs you to be real, even when it's messy, even when it's quiet, even when nothing is clear yet, because that's what makes him feel safe. He's watched the world tell him how to be a man. He's lived through expectations, judgments, pressure. He's been taught to suppress, to stay strong, to not feel too much. But then he met you, and your energy didn't demand anything. It didn't ask for performance. It just welcomed him as he is. That alone shook him, because most of his life, love, came with conditions. But you didn't come with a checklist. You came with energy. You came with presence. And even if you didn't say it out loud, your soul whispered, "You don't have to pretend here." Still, that doesn't mean he trusts it instantly. Even a free soul will hesitate at the door if all it's known is cages. So sometimes he'll test it. He'll pull away. He'll go quiet. He'll question the connection, not because it's wrong, but because he's scared it might be too right. Don't take that personally. It's not about your worth. It's about his conditioning. When the masculine retreats, it's not always rejection. It's often recalibration. He's asking himself silently, can I really let this in? Can I trust this love without losing myself in it? And the answer comes not from how much you chase, but from how deeply you stay anchored in you. That's what builds the safety he's never had. Because when your love isn't based on fear, when your presence doesn't vanish when things get quiet, when your energy doesn't collapse to be chosen, something shifts in him. He starts to realize, this is different. This is real. This is what I never knew I was looking for. And little by little, his heart begins to crack open, not in some dramatic explosion, but in soft moments, in small truths, in the way he starts to feel more like himself around you than anyone else. That's when the shift begins. Not when you try harder, not when you explain the connection one more time, but when you simply embody the energy you wish he could step into. Because your embodiment invites him, not by force, not by manipulation, but by resonance. He doesn't open for pressure. He opens for peace. And your peace, your steadiness, that's the map his heart has been waiting for. So next time you wonder why he's not opening, don't look at what he's saying. Look at what you're holding. Look at what your energy is offering. Is it an invitation or a demand? Because once he feels it, once his soul recognizes that this love doesn't shrink him, that's when the walls start falling. that's when the silence begins to break. That's when he stops running, not to chase you, but to finally meet you. Right where love has always been waiting. She used to think it was her job to fix it, to explain the connection, to show up a little more, love a little louder, stay a little longer, until he finally saw what she always knew was there. But that version of her love came from survival, from believing that the bond had to be earned, proven, or performed. Now, she's remembering something deeper. That real love doesn't need to chase to be received. The divine feminine is rewriting the story, not by changing him, but by changing how she shows up in the mirror of this connection. Because here's what most don't understand. In a twin flame dynamic, the feminine leads, not by force, but by frequency. She doesn't need to convince him of the connection. Her embodiment of it is the message. And when she starts showing up in her full energy, without the need to be chosen, validated, or confirmed, everything changes. Because the masculine doesn't respond to pressure. He responds to truth. And when the feminine is anchored in her truth, in her knowing, in her stillness, in her wholeness, he begins to feel something that no words ever offered him. Safety. Not the kind of safety that comes from comfort or familiarity, but the kind that says, you're allowed to take off the mask here. You're allowed to show up unsure, messy, even afraid. And I won't abandon myself trying to hold you. That's the shift. The old feminine would bend, fold, or overextend just to hold the connection together. But the evolved feminine, she holds herself, and in doing so, creates a space that invites him to hold himself too. She's not here to rescue. She's not here to pull him across the bridge. She's simply here to become the bridge between fear and truth, between silence and presence. And when she stands in that space, he starts to remember what it feels like to trust love again. But let's be real, this isn't easy, because there will be moments she wants to reach. Moments where his silence feels like rejection, and her old patterns scream to fill the gap. But now she knows the gap is sacred. It's where his growth lives. It's where her power holds. It's where the new story begins. She no longer collapses just to make him comfortable. She no longer explains herself to be heard. She no longer shrinks to keep the peace. Her role isn't to prove the love. It's to live it, to embody it, to walk it, to become the example of what this connection looks like when it's rooted in truth, not trauma. This doesn't mean waiting, It doesn't mean standing still hoping he wakes up. It means living her mission, loving herself out loud, being fully in the life she was born to create, with or without him beside her. Because her love isn't a bargaining chip, it's a vibration, and the more she embodies it without conditions, the more she shifts the entire dynamic. Not by fixing the masculine, but by no longer abandoning the feminine. That's how she rewrites the story, by writing herself back into it. Not the version that needed permission to feel, but the one who knows that her presence is powerful. She is no longer the one who waits. She is the one who remembers. And through her remembrance, she becomes the mirror he didn't know he was seeking all along. It didn't always look like love, not the way you needed it, not the way you dreamed it would show up, but it was love, in his own silent, confused, unspoken language. And that's the part no one really talks about. How the masculine often loves in ways the feminine doesn't recognize at first. Because it's not always about what he says. It's about what he hides, what he holds, what he feels so deeply that he can't name it yet. He didn't love you perfectly. He didn't always show up the way you hoped. But somewhere inside, all the confusion, all the pauses, all the pulling back, there was love. Real love. Unrefined, unpracticed, but real. Maybe it looked like distance. Maybe it felt like silence. But the truth is, he didn't pull away because you didn't matter. He pulled away because you did. Your presence awakened something in him that scared him more than losing you, because losing you felt like pain. But being truly seen, that felt like exposure, and the masculine, when not yet healed, fears being exposed. So he loved you in the safest way he could at the time, from a distance, with his heart closed but still beating for you, with his eyes full but guarded, with his soul screaming what his mouth couldn't yet say. And you, divine feminine, you tried to understand, you reached, you held space, you waited for him to catch up. But what you didn't always realize was that his silence wasn't absence, it was protection, not just of himself, but of the sacredness he didn't know how to handle yet. Now that you've grown, now that you've stepped into your own energy, you can finally hear it, feel it, sense it beyond the words. You were always loved, just not in the way you were taught to expect, but in the way his soul knew how to give at that level of awareness in that moment of his journey. And that doesn't make the pain disappear, but it softens it. Because now you know, you weren't crazy, you weren't making it all up. That pull, that look, that sudden warmth in his energy field. That was love, undeveloped, unspoken, but alive. And the beauty of your journey isn't that you waited, it's that you kept becoming. You didn't stop your life for him. You stepped deeper into your purpose. You remembered who you are, and in doing so, you became the vibration he could one day return to. Not because you begged, not because you stayed stuck in hope, but because you became the safe place he never knew he was searching for. So if you're still wondering whether he loved you, you can let that question rest now, because the answer isn't in a message. It's not in a call. It's not even in his next step. It's in the way your energy always pulled the truth to the surface, even when he wasn't ready to face it. And now, you're not waiting to be loved. You're standing in the knowing that you were, even when he didn't know how to show it. That is the kind of love that never truly disappears, because it was never about the words. It was about the soul. And the soul never forgets.